Hello everybody, this is Renaissance Craft, and today we're going to be going over the basics on how to design a character. Now, this is the basics on a character made up from simple shapes, non-human. I added a bunch of human features to it just for the example's sake, but this is just basically how to begin creating something. So with this, I took a very general idea of a frog and a lizard with some human-esque attributes. And so I started out with what was in my head at the time. Now, I have to say that the first thing I did is I just thought about what a frog and the lizard's basic features were. So, I thought about, a more elongated back, a smaller head, more to the frame, the billowing throat of a frog when he's letting out his croak, more frog-like legs here in the back and how they would be. And then from there, I said, okay, but I also want a little hump. So all I did is start with those basic shapes. I didn't even think about this arm, but I just put a line in there just to know it. And I knew I wanted a large mouth like a frog. So then I just, from that, did the very basic shape of what I wanted. And I had a very simplified blocked form of possibly what I eventually was going to get. Now, from there, I did, several sketches, still following the same of just the simple shapes. That's how I built all these up. Now, they're all very light, so, bear with me. And so the first thing was, I started with what my idea was, the bigger throat, that, and then I went on to, okay, maybe I want him more of a standing with his arms down flat, but still a little more upright, more of a sag, a bigger billowing head, a more rounded body. And then I tried to do like a frontal view of what I thought that might like. I didn't like the way that looked. So then I said, okay, what if, the feet would drag and he would just pull himself with the arms, bigger but not as billowing here, a more rounded top, a more rounded head. And if you can see right here, I circled this. I liked this idea of the head, but I didn't care for much more than that. So then I went on to this here where I kept the more billowing head. I changed the eye style a little bit and how this did. I added a tail, and I still kept the dragging feet, but had more of a knuckle type reach. But I really liked this billowing throat here. So then I moved on to this and kept, the head here and the throat there, and moved on to that. I left a note because I didn't like any of these on what to do with the front of the arms. I still kept the back. I tried the tail in a different way. I moved on to what I would think it would look like with an open mouth, and from there I did a very small sketch of maybe what I wanted to do with the arm, if I wanted to change the foot, because I had the essential features. Then I moved on with the same billowing throat and head, maybe a larger hump, the legs in a different way, and then I did a very basic shape. And then my final one, which I probably should have wrote was 11, I still put an X because I didn't like the way those hands were, but I liked everything else about it. Now I moved on to a basic line drawing where even though I liked the tail the other way, I kept a more basic tail, just a flat stump, because I had an idea of, a different type of lizard. I put in a little detail to say, okay, do I want scales or knobs, or, what textures do I want? I drew it with its mouth open, how, I had the hands more of a hand, more out, as you can see here, and, what the very basic sketch of what it would look like open. And so, once again, these drawings here only took a couple minutes, 2-3 minutes, just getting the essence down. These drawings here probably took 4 or 5 minutes trying to get them a little more clear, a little more crisp, so I really understood what I was doing. Then I went to a line drawing that probably took 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes max, getting down more of a 3/4 view, more of a position, so you could see both the side and the front view a little bit. But I kept everything I liked about it: the dragging leg, the more human-esque hand coming out, the billowing throat, the rounded head, the more bulbous top, the short stubby tail with that. And then from there, I did a very, very basic, more like this so it doesn't get that glare, very basic sketch with shade. This probably took, after I transferred that line drawing over, this probably took about an hour, maybe an hour and a half to do, to get, the sun kind of coming this way, and so you get to see the way it might look. I didn't do a lot of detail. It's not a zoomed in view. It's just a very simplified, so I can see the way, the curves would be, how the shadows might kind of feel and be. And then from here, I could actually do a bunch of different things. I could do dynamic poses. I could go ahead and create it using a lot of texture and feel and adding mood and different types of lighting, as well as background and things. But that is just a very basic way of designing or drawing a character without spending a lot of time. So total, just to design that character was probably a couple hours, and I feel like I had a very decent or good beginning to a character. So now all I'm going to do is go through a quick, this is probably stage 5 of a dwarf I've been working on. And if you can see here was the basic sketch with a little bit of clothing I wanted the dwarf to look like. I added armor or weapons that I wanted to see, plus another sketch. I thought about what he would look like with armor on, and then this is a bunch of doodles, a bunch of scribbles of just trying to get the downward view, another view, and then a more detailed, still cartoony, just line drawing, and then doing it again if I like that. And then going ahead and saying, okay, I didn't like something about that, so let's try to draw the hands and the arms in a certain way. Once again, just sketching different views of him, doing different things. And this was all just one character. And then going back to say, okay, what is the ideal proportions and outline of the dwarf itself? Like, what is the body proportion to the head and the arms? And so I gridded it off and drew the basic shapes, and then, well, this was more for a sculpture, but I did the same thing here, where I did the shapes and the proportions. He's not in pose, he's just straight up and down, how the armor would fit on him, so later on I could put him in a type of pose. Then I started breaking down the armor, the way it would fit over his body. I'm not worried so much about, is this a great drawing? Is this, a wonderful piece of art? And then this was kind of, starting to put him into pose. But once again, this was not, supposed to be a finished thing. This was just saying, okay, what would this look like if I put, him into pose? Is the armor okay? Do I need to change things? How do I need to manipulate things? And this is just going, further and further with another character, a goblin, the same thing. Just over and over again, And I have another sketchbook that is, just stage 1, 2, and 3 of these guys being built up. And they've changed further from here as well, as I've started to grid out and space them off. But that is just the very basics of how I like to create or begin to create a character, and you can go very far. I will do multiple videos of this, so stay tuned.